And now my mission is to just show people that you shouldn't wait to get through something traumatic or get on your hospital bed in order to realize that life is precious.
Hi, and welcome to Common Denominator. I'm Moshe Popack, and today we're actually doing something very special. Mindset, for me, as you know, is super important for your personal and professional growth. As we approach the end of the year, here are some clips that we've pulled from our interviews regarding mindset. Hope you enjoy. First, I asked 5-time MMA Trainer of the Year, Phil Daru, who is a world-renowned strength and conditioning coach, why it's so critical to be self-aware on your journey. I always talk about kind of like you put the flashlight on yourself, and many people I'll meet that are suffering in their day-to-day life, and you can't do the work for anybody. People have to, and I always want people to try to avoid hitting rock bottom, but that is the beginning point of putting that flashlight to begin to be introspective, to begin to see yourself. Why do you find that knowing yourself is such an important element of your journey in life?
It's a good question. I think it's because of the fact that when you know who you are, you know where you want to go, and you know the things that are going to take you there to get, or what you're going to need to do to get there. So for me, like I said, that was the major turning point in my life when I found out exactly what I needed to do because of who I was, right? And peeling back the layers of talent, right? So there's things that, okay, yeah, I'm athletic, I have the ability to communicate, but why? And you just keep asking yourself why. And if you have passion to help people, then you're going to be in a good position to do so. But if you don't have that passion, then you have to go a different route.
We were lucky enough to interview two of the most accomplished rock climbers in the world and world record holders, Sasha DiGiulian and Gadd. And if you can scale the most majestic, most impressive, most dangerous mountains in the world, you certainly are an expert in mindset. Here's Sasha on the techniques she uses on a climb to stay present and to stay alive. Like, what actually goes on in your mind? I mean, you have to know that there's a real risk there.
I think in general, the broad spectrum of high performing and optimally reaching your limits as an athlete comes down to that mindset and like how you control your mind, whether it's the risk of a fatality or the risk of an injury or the risk of just failing. And what I do for some of my tools, I guess, in my kit is first, visualization is a really big part of how I practice. And that will be imagining myself in these extreme situations and bringing myself through visualization, which could just be me in my office, thinking about it, really going deep. I actually write out situations too, like I'm a big journaler, and forecasting how I'll operate in my mind before I even get there. But then there's also an element of the unknown in climbing that I can visualize as much as I can about a climb that I've never been on. But the reality is only when I get there will I be able to make that live puzzle piece come together. And so in that frame of work, a lot comes down for me is breathing. Being in control of my breath enables me to make rational decisions and quickly think on my, I guess, toes, not feet, because you're on your tips of your toes of your rubber shoes. What's plan A, B, and C here? If this minute movement doesn't work, how can I kind of reground myself and make a quick decision, game time decision in that moment of what to do next with my body?
Next, Will on the mental work he does to overcome fear and anxiety and how truly listening to your inner voice makes all the difference. At this point, of all the training that you've had, is there anything that still scares you? Or are you willing to just push forward on things?
People are often surprised that I have really high levels of fear and anxiety. They look at what I do and they're like, you look really happy dangling off the side of that waterfall. And the truth is that I'm happy doing this stuff. But what keeps me alive is all the prep work and listening to that fear and anxiety rather than trying to stuff it into a bucket and put a lid on it. That doesn't work. that explodes like some kind of bad horror movie. When you lock all that shit down, it eats you. It blows up. So what I try to do is listen to it. I'm like, why am I anxious? Why am I afraid? So, it starts off with this really great idea. Let's do something cool together. Let's do something magic. But then how do we do that? And in my world, it's really hazardous. So how do we do that as a team and do a good job of it and come back? And that's where some of the tools that I use come in, like listening to that anxiety. If you're anxious and afraid, it's not a cue to push harder. It's a cue to get your mind in order.
Mindset isn't just important when it comes to scaling mountains. It's also critical to launching a business. Here's Dr. Tracy Timberlake on how personal alignment leads to finding your passion, which leads to crushing it in business. People will say, oh, business is ruthless and it's intense and you got to do whatever it takes. And that means sometimes prices to pay and then compromises. But have you seen, I know that I have, but it's been a lot of work, but being aligned actually results in increasing in the business box, right? Increasing profit.
Yeah.
So tell me how that actually functionally works. Like when you're aligned, how it actually goes to the bottom line. I want to kind of motivate the listeners to really understand that concept.
Yeah, in entrepreneurship, I think there's a lot of different examples, right? Which is great because we have social media, we have so many methods and models that we can look at. There is no right method or model other than the right one for you. And I say this to people all the time. You can do drop shipping, you can do coaching, you can start a brick and mortar company. Every model works, right? We've seen it. I think the danger of it is looking to what exists and thinking that is the only way that you can do something and not being aligned with yourself. Having the fun of entrepreneurship, like really pursuing that, is where the profits come from, because you're not going to enjoy, like, can entrepreneurship be hard? Yes. Like, can you be in a place where you're like, I hate it here, this is not fun anymore? Yes. But to your point, the passion is what kind of gets you over that hump. Right. If you're not passionate about drop shipping, you're not going to keep doing it. Like that's not a sexy business to be in if it's not something that you enjoy. Right. So you have to find the fun in what it is you're doing in order to keep doing it. Because why would you keep going?
Here's more mindset advice for launching a business from Alex Neist, the founder of Hostage Tape, which helps you quit snoring. Alex was a former Canadian Football League quarterback, and he brought his athletic discipline and training to entrepreneurship. But I do like the discipline of athletics, gives you kind of the framework, the process and procedure. Every day waking up early and doing what you need to do is a similar kind of framework as an entrepreneur, I find.
Well, and you know what it is, man? It's the grind. And what a lot of people that look on the outside in at entrepreneurship, building a business, don't understand is that it ain't all sunshine and rainbows every day, right? Like an athlete, you wake up every morning, you go to the gym, you work out, you practice, you go home, you get up and you repeat it day in and day out for 15 years, 20 years, whatever it is. That's entrepreneurship. You get up, you do all the work. It might feel monotonous, but that's what you got to do. And then it stacks and stacks and stacks and builds, and the momentum continues to build and build and build.
A common mental block that plagues entrepreneurs is imposter syndrome. If you suffer from it, here's Justin Richmond. Justin hosts the Started from the Bottom podcast, where he interviews people who, like himself, beat the odds and overcame imposter syndrome. Our whole thing as humans is personal growth and development, like to grow.
Yeah.
So at each level, 100% of the time, since you've never been there before, there will be imposter syndrome. You will have it.
Yeah.
Because you've never experienced it. So it's new. So you're shedding. Right? In order to grow, you have to shed. You have to shed the
skin.
negative skin, people, things. Otherwise, you're not getting there. Right? Right? So you have this idea in your head when you're laying in bed at night. It has to be that way. And at each level, and then that tool, right? The way I kind of think of it is just to work harder than everybody else.
Yeah, I agree. You have to work harder, and you have to and you have to realize that you are going. And you're right. You have to shed skin. You have to realize that, maybe you are being put in a position that isn't quite for you. Like maybe this situation does outstripe you a little bit, but you know what? Just swim in the pool. Just swim. Just go. Maybe you got thrown in the deep end. Maybe you don't belong here. Try to tread water. And if through treading water, you start to swim some laps, you start to win a couple. It's like your confidence will build. And that's one reason I think lately I feel like I'm coming out the other side of having imposter syndrome to just now having a regular level of like confidence, is that like what I've realized is even if something isn't for me, I could still try it, and I could still. And what's the worst? Like I could succeed. I could realize I could either do really well with it, or I could realize like, oh, this isn't for me. Put it down and move along to the next thing.
Sometimes mindset isn't about building a business. It's just about finding joy in your daily life. Veronica Vega was an aspiring musician who signed a record contract as a teenager, but spent many years unfulfilled. Until, ultimately, she refocused her life, shifted her perspective, and found true joy. I want to go back because this was super. I want to commend you on this because there are so many people we're seeing in social media, and I want to take a step back as a third party, and I'm talking to you because really, it really is something on my own journey, and I'm looking at you. When you're 15 years old, you signed with Atlantic Records, a major music contract, recording contract. That theoretically, right, and everybody's dream.
Yeah.
That's like a dream of what people would want.
Yeah.
And I know we spoke a little bit before the show. For you, it didn't connect to what it was. But the fact that, and I want people to understand that the journey is alone. It's your own journey. Everyone's thinking, you're seeing everything, again, that social media, you're seeing everything, and you think it's all out there. It's all immediate. It's all the crazy great things. But it seems when I'm talking to you, you're able to be strong enough to say, you know what? This is not for me, and I'm going to figure out what makes me truly happy.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about, how, your childhood and when you signed the contract and what that looked like for you.
Ooh, that's such a long journey and so many stories, right?
And I know I see you're getting a little bit emotional, but I
just think that I think the best way to put it is, through media and marketing, I was sold a dream of what happiness would look like and what success looks like. And success is a bunch of people that are looking at you, that like what you're doing and performing for people, although, and I never asked myself these questions at 15 years old or 13 years old or whatever. You never ask yourself the true questions in life is, do I want to perform for someone or do I want to actually be what I am? And that comes from being present. But it took me my entire 20s to figure that out. And I feel like I'm still like in the beginning of the discovery of what that is, of becoming more accepting of myself. I think one of the biggest reasons, I'm love music. So of course I wanted to do music because I love music and I love to sing. But, and I don't think I'll ever, that will never go away. So in whatever capacity, I will still always be in that space. But I think it was about creating boundaries. When I was younger, I didn't learn how to create boundaries in my household. I did not have value for myself. I did not understand how you make connections for yourself to truly fulfill yourself. And as I bumped into many walls and overcame many obstacles, I realized you can have all the things that they've showed you on television, and perhaps maybe for someone that might be fulfilling, but what else is behind that? Like, what else do you have besides that? What do you do when you're off? and if you never go off, then are you that? Is that what you are? Could you live like that until the end of whatever this phase is? And it was very scary for me to step out of that space, because that's the only space that I knew, and it was the only space that I thought I could be successful in. So I lived in fear from the moment that I got into that space until the moment that I decided that what was I scared of. But fear is one of those things that's invisible that you just put on top of yourself and you don't realize.
I've said about fear a few times in the show, and I just want to repeat this because it was so important for me. False evidence appearing real.
False evidence appearing real.
That's the acronym. Dr. Anna Yusim is an award-winning and board-certified Stanford and Yale-educated psychiatrist and executive coach. Here, she shares why it's so important to be authentic and to identify your true purpose in the world. The reason why people are suffering is actually from mental health, and I see this a lot, is because they're being who they're not meant to be.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah.
Right, a lot less suffering happens when they are just who they're meant to be.
Yeah, for
and it
sure.
takes a lot of courage in that.
For sure, absolutely. And that's such a big part, taking off the mask, being able to align with your soul, letting go of the people pleasing and what everybody else expects of you, and really distinguishing who am I really and what's my purpose in this world. And then as you think about your purpose, you think about two things, right? What is the contribution I'm meant to make in this world, and how do I align with that? And then what are my soul corrections, which is a deeper question. And those are the challenges that can come up in your life, often again and again and again, sometimes much to your chagrin and dismay, and despite your best efforts to change that. And so part of authenticity is aligning with both your soul correction and your soul purpose.
In 2001, Ryan Zofay was addicted to drugs and nearly died in a car accident. When he woke up from a coma, he vowed to change his life. Now, he's healthy and thriving and runs multiple treatment centers, guiding people on their paths to recovery. Here's his insight on moving away from a victim mentality and taking responsibility for your decisions and their consequences. Where do you see the next 5 years, 10 years? Like, what do you see personally, professionally?
Thank you. So it's interesting. Like, every single day I wake up, I have a choice to be a victim or I have a choice to take responsibility. And yes, although I may have been through some challenging times, for a very long time, I played that victim role. And being a victim today in society is actually a strength, because if you're a victim, people tend to come rescue you. And that's the type of people you'll attract. And so once I take responsibility for myself in all areas of my life, like you're mentioning, relationships, friendships, professionally, spiritually, I attract a different type of clientele, a different type of person to me. And I start to build this community of people like-minded, and I honor and appreciate what you're doing here. And thank you so much for inviting me on your show. I also feel that we are aligned. There's like this unconscious spoken, as I'm looking at you, like I feel you and I know what you're saying, and I definitely see that we're aligned, and I really appreciate that.
And finally, 1 year ago, Louis Shakes rollerbladed across the USA in 45 days, setting a world record. He did it to raise money and awareness about the rare disease that almost killed him as a child. He tells us not to wait until we're sick to start living. And I'm a big believer in what is your why. For you, right? For you, you were 6 years old and you're like, I want to play hockey, right? Mm-hmm. That's what I'm gonna do. And whatever that happens to be for each person, that why will always trump fear.
100%. And on the other side of fear, there's like life. Like I always say this, there's the things that we know we can do. There's the things we'd like to do. And then there's what we think it's our limit, right? And as soon as you get past that and you break the belief of fear that's overpowered your mind, as soon as you get through that, you just realize that this whole time you've been holding yourself back. You've been lying to yourself. I experienced it firsthand on my journey when I thought I was done skating, and then I just kept going one more step and then one more step. And then I'm 100 miles further than I was back there. And you're like, well, and I thought I was done. Just like oh, well, this guy thought I was done on my hospital bed. Look at me now. And the things I get to experience every day just because I believed it was possible. You know, we all have dreams and we all think like, oh, this, you know, I'd love to do that, or I like the idea of that, but your dreams are your own, and they're here for a reason. And if you don't act on them, nobody's coming to save you. Nobody's going to do it for you. You know, had I waited for somebody to make me feel better in my hospital bed, I wouldn't be here today. Had I waited for somebody else to skate across America for this disease, nobody would have done it. It's up to us. And a lot of people don't realize that we have so much more control than we tend to think. And now my mission is to just show people that you shouldn't wait to get through something traumatic or get on your hospital bed in order to realize that life is precious.
I want to thank all of you for listening, and hopefully you had some key takeaways during this 2023 crazy year. I know I've learned a lot, and I'm super excited for 2024 to continue to push the mindset, continue to push the results, and hopefully we can all learn and grow together. And I know we've mentioned it a couple times on the show that nothing happens alone. All this comes together by an excellent professional team that we have. And I want to say thank you to them. And we're going to keep on pushing the limits together. And hopefully we'll be able to deliver to all of you some really great content. Thank you. Happy and healthy New Year.